Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Brayden, good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you too.
So, for the record, is it Boucher or Bouchy?
Boucher.
Boucher, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was, but people told me otherwise, and they made me look stupid.
No, it's
Okay,
all good.
so Brayden, don't call me Bouchy, Boucher.
Yeah, there you go. There you
All
go.
right. So first off, I thought we could just quickly touch on your PBL days. I know you played for two different organizations, White Rock and Langley, and I just wanted to know, like, it wasn't that long ago that you were in the PBL, and things are continuing on and getting better every single year, I think, in the PBL. But I'm curious as to what the state was when you were there as a player.
Yeah, it was a competitive league for sure. There was definitely a couple of the teams were a little bit ahead of some of the other organizations. Now I know they've added a couple teams, right, since I've left. So I think the talent's getting a little bit more dispersed throughout the Lower Mainland, the island, and the Okanagan. But baseball in Canada in general has completely grown since I've been in high school, and especially over the last 5 or 6 years. With the honestly mostly because of the Blue Jays' success in 2015, 2016, it's really grown nationally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think even and now with the Raptors doing well, basketball numbers are up too. So I think
Yeah.
just Canada loves following winning ball clubs or winning sports clubs, I suppose.
hmm
Do you remember any notable names that were in the league with you at around that time?
One of my teammates, Tyler O'Neill, obviously in Langley, he is in the big leagues now with the Cardinals. Mitch Robinson is in the Yankees organization now. Um, Morgan Lofstrom, he's with the Reds. Yeah, there's quite a few. Now we have Will McCaffer from North Van. He's with the Jays as well. Got drafted, I think, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. But yeah, there's a lot of local talent that's getting to the next level and getting into pro ball.
I remember, like, I graduated high school in 2012, and a big conversation was Canadians are getting missed because it was difficult for. I mean, I'm from Edmonton, so it's a little different for my experience versus Vancouver, but scouts didn't want to come up and watch us throw
hmm
inside for 4 or 5 months out of the year, and then our season was so short. But do you see that shifting a little bit now with Canadians? Like, it seems like more and more Canadians are getting seen. It may not be as like I think it is a part of it that Canadians are getting better, but also I think more Canadians are getting seen. Would you agree? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think just overall, not even just Canadians. I think it's easier to get exposure with some of the Twitter accounts like Pitching Ninja and Flat Ground and those sort of things that are meant to get guys exposed and have the opportunity to get recruited if you're not going to showcases and you can't necessarily afford all of those luxuries that a lot of in the past is what it took to get exposed and get college recognition.
Yeah, it's tough when baseball starts kind of becoming like a privatized event where if you don't have the money, it's difficult to get seen. But like you said, with great, like I love Pitching Ninja, I love Flat Ground.
hmm
I follow all those accounts, and I love seeing kids posting their stuff on there and just like basically shooting their shot and seeing what happens. And you see like coaches commenting all the time saying, "Hey, send me your information." So you graduated with Langley. Did you feel that going to Langley for your grade 12 year gave you a really good opportunity to be able to move on to the next level?
Yeah, that was part of the reason. There was a scenario that I got held back into junior in my grade 11 year when I was in White Rock just because they wanted me to stay in overage. And I felt like it wasn't really in my best interest and didn't really have, they didn't really take my opinion into account for that. So that was part of my decision. And then I knew that Langley had a good track record with that. And honestly, one of my best friends was on from White Rock, was on the Langley Blaze team as well. So just a bunch of different things kind of made the decision up for me and made it a pretty Yeah, and I never grew up thinking like, oh, like, yeah, I need to get to Langley to go. And honestly, like college baseball wasn't really in my um, vision until, grade 11, 12, when I kind of was like, oh, maybe that's a possibility. So it wasn't like, okay, once I'm in grade 11, I'm going to transfer over there. It was more just a couple things led up to it, and eventually, yeah, it was the right decision for me.
Did you feel that at grade 11, grade 12 year, you kind of saw a bump in your talent level, your skill level? Like, was that a maturity thing?
I think for sure I got better when I went over there. But I don't think that if I had stayed, I wouldn't have gotten any better as well. I think it was just a natural progression, kind of getting bigger, stronger a little bit, and the maturity thing. And I think the best thing about Langley was getting exposed to playing colleges and professional teams when we went to Arizona and Florida, and getting to play against better talent, and kind of seeing like, okay, like I can compete with these guys now. Um, and back in high school, I was a good pitcher. I wasn't a standout by any means. I was mid 80s to upper 80s sort of thing, and so I wasn't pumping 90 or anything back in those days. But yeah, I was able to. There was one game in Arizona we played against the Royals, probably extended team or whatever, and I threw like 4 innings of shutout ball, and I was like, okay, like yeah, I can do this, and kind of just gave me the confidence going forward, knowing that it was kind of going to be possible to move on with baseball.
I just saw in the comments, were you in the Little League World Series?
Yeah, yeah,
2008.
2000,
I gotta hear
2008.
about that. Yeah, I gotta hear
Yeah,
about that.
it was awesome. We uh, we had a really good team. Yeah, went all the way through nationals, and got to go down there and play. We lost 2 games and won one, so we didn't make it past the round robin. But it was an awesome experience, just kind of getting to see like play in front of fans, and get to kind of experience what it's like to be a professional or a college big time college. Like obviously you're 12, but it's the crowds were huge, and you're getting treated like a celebrity out there. So it was, yeah, it was pretty awesome experience.
Which park did you go? Which park did you play for?
White Rock Little League.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So were you like the stud shortstop slash pitcher slash catcher kind of kid?
No, I actually played I played catcher back in the day when I was 12. So like, yeah, that was pretty much my only position on the all-star team or whatever. But yeah, I wasn't like a great hitter. I was decent, but yeah, I was pretty good backstop, and didn't let too many balls get by me. So
That's the key to winning games in Little League,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
How long was catcher your secondary position, or like how long were you a catcher until you became a pitcher?
Um, I well, growing up, kind of played everything, and until I got to, well, like once we got out of Little League, I played predominantly infield, just because I started growing a little bit, and um, wanted to get out from behind the plate, and so I started playing infield, mostly third base, and then I was also pitching, on and off. And I didn't really become a full-time pitcher until my grade 12 year with Langley.
Right.
And then we had a couple, guys go down with injuries, and a couple guys get drafted, and they need a couple more hitters all of a sudden. So I had to pick up hitting
Yeah.
again halfway through the year, which was fun. But you
How'd that
know,
go for you?
it was better than, it wasn't pretty, but I was decent. Didn't embarrass myself. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So you finished your high school career and you went to Odessa?
yeah, Odessa College.
Right. And you only spent a
Yeah.
year there. Was there a reason why you transferred out after a year?
We had a coaching change after my first year. I had a good experience there, and honestly, like it prepped me for a good first year coming out of high school. You know, it wasn't like a crazy jump into like a massive campus and having to go to big time school, but it just wasn't the right fit for me going forward, I don't think. And I had a couple schools I was talking to, and it just worked out. I ended up signing with ULM super late. I flew down there to kind of go visit probably 2 weeks before school started, and just signed at that point. And they were scrambling to find a place for me to live, so I ended up moving into it's called the Baseball Mansion, and there was 5 guys already living there, and they kind of had like a office, sort of like very small bedroom list, and they stuck me in there. Yeah, super cheap rent, and yeah, no, it was awesome, and still talk to those guys every day, and yeah, it's a great experience.
Every college has a goat house, man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So did you play summer ball in between that freshman and sophomore season, or like what kind of stats helped you get to ULM?
I came back, and Langley was playing in a league down in Seattle. And I don't know exactly like what the rule was, but you were allowed like one college player on your team. So I have a pretty good relationship with Jamie Bodley and Doug Matheson, and they invited me back. And so I was just pitching for them. And one of the ULM pitching coaches at the time, Larry Thomas, came out and came out to one of my games, and we ended up getting it done. But yeah, it wasn't like a college summer league or anything. I ended up playing the next summer in Ohio in the Great Lakes Summer League, and I think that was the summer that really kind of put me on the map. I think I gave up 1 earned run in like 49 innings or something.
Okay.
It was an all-American, and yeah, it kind of put me on the map. And I think without that, probably might have not got drafted my junior year.
Did you find that your freshman year to your sophomore year, how big of a jump did you have in terms of like either your stuff or your work ethic or your maturity?
It was a weird jump for me because I'd always been a starter throughout high school and junior college. I started and was like the number 1 or number 2 guy for most of the season, and then ended up moving over to ULM, and they had a couple older guys who were the weekend starters, and so I didn't really pitch the first like 2 weeks of the season, and I thought I was going to end up getting some like midweek starts. Wasn't the case, and then I threw, I think it was a Sunday game. We were going for like the sweep against Sam Houston or some school, and it was my first outing, threw pretty well, and then I ended up kind of filling in as the weekday starter for a bit. Still traveled for most of the weekends, but didn't really log too many innings, so it was kind of weird from being one of the guys to kind of taking a back seat and not having as many innings as I was used to. So they were really pushing me to go play summer ball and kind of take that next step so I could come back in the fall and earn one of those 3 spots to be a weekend guy. Yeah.
Did you find that taking like that step back, and because I'm assuming like you probably were one of the guys that the team needed, from grade 11 up, right? And that's when those like really important games start happening. Did you find that being able to watch other people kind of work their way through that stuff, did you find that helped you get better in some way?
Yeah, we had some good leadership of those veteran guys my sophomore year there, that kind of took me under their wing and showed me the ropes, and just maturity wise, just like learning. I mean, you're always a student of the game, and you can always learn new stuff regardless of how long you've been in the game. So it was kind of just like one of those things where it was probably a good thing for my career long term, and it was valuable for me, and ended up helping me become who I am now.
Right. So I guess you got did you go 3 years in college or just 2 years in college?
Three, so one at Odessa and two at ULM there.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
junior year you got drafted after that junior year. Were you one of the guys that junior year? Were you a
Yeah,
starter?
so I started the year, I think as the Friday night guy. Um, and I had like a unreal first half of the season, and then had a little bicep tendonitis, and the velo kind of dropped a little bit.
That's
And
a
I
killer.
wasn't, yeah, I'm not, at that time, I wasn't a very hard thrower anyway. So I was like 85, 86 and kind of struggling a little bit more. And so I had a pretty tough second half. Kind of just battled through some starts and still like had decent numbers, but the amount of teams that I was talking to for the draft definitely dropped quite a bit. And yeah, it wasn't a certainty that it was going to happen anymore. So it was kind of there's three or four teams that I was talking to, and yeah, the Blue Jays were probably the biggest team that I was still in touch with at the time.
How was that like pressure and dealing with that pressure like heading into your junior year, being draftable again, and like once you started feeling and seeing that, because you seem pretty like perspective or like you probably knew right as it was happening, like man, this is kind of hurting my chances here, and it wasn't like a looking back that hurt my chances, but maybe in the moment you knew, like
Yeah,
how do you handle that in the back of your mind when you're trying to just go out there and do your job?
yeah, it's something that like it definitely comes with experience. You learn how to handle situations better. And at the time, it definitely was like a pressing matter for me. And it was like, man, like not throwing so well, like this is really hurting the chances. And I wish that I could go back and kind of change my mindset there and just continue to just do my routine and go about how I was doing stuff at the beginning of the year. Obviously, it ended up working out all right, anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that looking back on was definitely a learning curve for me.
Yeah. And you signed up to your junior year. Was there any thought of going back for your senior year? I know that the money gets really bad when people get drafted out of their senior year.
Yeah, so that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand is if you get drafted as a junior, like you have leverage to go back to school. Um, but as soon as you're a senior, it's tough. You don't have any leverage, right? You're either going on to play pro ball or you're going on to play independent ball or you're not playing anymore. So the
Yeah.
money wasn't really there. I had an agent or an advisor at the time, and just kind of talking to him and with my family, it was like, yeah, that's the right decision for me. Our baseball program, like, loved all the guys, everything. We didn't have the best season my junior year, so it was kind of, it was a small conference team, and there wasn't any guarantee that I was going to put up the numbers that I was putting up and potentially not get drafted the next year. So it was just kind of get your foot in the door and try and see what you can make out of it.
Yeah, you gotta kind of take it when they give it to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I saw in the comments, and I think this is a good time to ask, what do you find are some differences between pitching in the college game and pitching in the professional game?
Um, the college game is there's a lot of talent throughout lineups, um, but there are definitely some holes in the lineups towards the bottom, obviously. But in pro ball, there's a lot of guys who just have a better approach at the plate, especially the higher levels you go. College is honestly a lot like rookie ball and that sort of stuff, where there's a lot of you have a couple types of pitchers. For the most part, you have guys who throw strikes, who can throw off speed pitches for strike, and then you have guys who throw very hard and don't have the best control. So it's kind of hit and miss, and there's a lot of hitters who I've talked to that have said that hitting in rookie ball is harder than hitting in A ball.
I can
just
only
because,
imagine when you don't know, you might get ear holed one at bat
yeah.
by
So
some
it's,
kid throwing 100 miles per hour.
yeah, exactly. So there's some similarities for sure. Um, Obviously, minor league baseball is about development, and less about winning at that level. So there isn't as much bunting and situational hitting. There still is, but it's not for big time prospects. They want them to swing the bat and get their hacks in, right? So there are some scenarios where it's not quite about winning, and it's you just have to like know that going in and kind of know what hitters are trying to do rather than pitching to how you were in college and okay, this guy's probably going to bunt here. Just doesn't happen quite as often.
Would you say that there's a lot more like pre-game preparation in pro ball versus college ball?
Yeah, so that's the first time that I really developed like a good prep routine was in pro ball, and they, that's something that takes time, and obviously like still pretty young now, and when I got drafted I was still young, but your body starts, taking a bit of a toll, especially your first full season, or even after the draft, right? You go through a full college season and then a full, well, a short season most of the time, but you're playing a lot of games, and
It's
then
still 80 games, right?
yeah, so you're not really used to playing that much, so you just have to like learn how to take care of your body
Yeah.
better, and that's something that the Blue Jays are very high on, and they like to push high performance, and so they've invested a lot of money on recovery and nutrition, and mental performance is a big thing, and like rehab and strength and conditioning side of things, just to so that you're able to stay on the field and perform at your best, right?
Right. So you got drafted and your first stop was Vancouver, right?
No, my first stop, I was actually in the GCL for 2 weeks
That's a
or two
tough
or three.
league.
Yeah, it's different, right? So you you get drafted and you're like, all right, I'm in professional baseball, and then you're dumped into these backfields and you're
Yeah.
playing at noon in Florida in July.
110 degrees out.
Yeah, with 100% humidity and no fans. The only people in the stands are the starting pitchers for the next day holding the radar guns and starts. So it's kind of a step where it's like, okay, like where am I? Like you're not really sure like what you're doing. Like luckily I was only there for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I got called up to Bluefield, which is in West Virginia, and that's just the next level up. Which you're playing in a stadium, you're playing at night. Um, so it's definitely a nice step up from waking up at 6 o'clock and going to the field and playing at noon and then having the rest of the day to kill. Yeah, so that was a nice step. It's kind of an interesting league. Everything's pretty close together. You have some commuter trips, so you're just getting on the bus and driving to the way park and then come back every night. Um, there's some parks that are, you play at better parks in high school
Yeah.
some of the times. So it's not like obviously not where you want to end up, but it was a good experience. First time like actually being in like a professional locker room and like having that opportunity to like learn from some of the guys who have been there for a year or two, and our manager there, Dennis Holmberg, he was awesome about just kind of getting guys introduced to professional baseball, and it's very weird coming from Canada or college or whatever, where predominantly you have North Americans on your team, and then half your team all of a sudden doesn't speak the same language as you.
Yeah.
Um, and luckily, like I took a little bit of Spanish in high school, and so I knew some of it, but it's kind of getting that introduction to, interacting with people who aren't from the same culture and don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
So that was Dennis did a really good job of bringing everyone together and kind of introducing them to professional baseball and what it's like to go through a season and be a team and still take care of yourself and all that. So yeah, that was honestly a really good step, and I really appreciated having Dennis as a manager for that first year, just because I mean he's been around forever, and he knows a lot about the game, very smart baseball mind, but he also is very good at the side of, just bringing guys into professional baseball and, developing those routines.
So you mentioned like you got really hot weather, high humidity, and I know what minor league baseball is like. You don't get fed the right stuff all the time. How much, like, with all those difficulties in terms of showing up to the park and like putting your best foot forward, how much did you have to rely on your mental toughness, your determination, your love of the game, like all those things that pushed you and became like, the wind under your sails when you had so much like dragging you back? How hard was it, or how easy was it maybe for you to show up and put your best effort every single day to get moved on to the next level?
Overall, if baseball is what you want to do, it's not hard to show up to the park and, enjoy it. There definitely are days where it's drags on and you don't want to be there as much, but that's goes with everything, right? It definitely is a lot about mental toughness, and baseball players are pretty notorious for complaining about a lot of stuff, and a lot of the time it's kind of sarcastic, but serious at the same time. So I think those lower levels are something where it really does teach you mental toughness, and like you really figure out if that's what you want to do. Because I played with a couple of guys those first couple of years that had all the talent in the world, and they just at the end of the year were like, this isn't really for me, and retired and moved on to doing other things, which if that's what you want to do, that's, it's totally your prerogative. But I think if you can get through that first couple of years, it's you figure out that that's what you want to do, and, you're driven to get to the park every day and try and get better.
Right. So let's fast forward to Canadians.
Yeah.
How did you feel like getting the notice that, hey, you're going home, you're going to Vancouver, you're going to play in front of your family, in front of your friends. You've been to Nat Bailey probably hundreds of times at that point to watch games. Especially coming from, the GCL, you get to go to the Northwest League, where it's still a bus league, but, with the fan base, I think you get a lot of extrinsic motivation as well.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like showing up every day to Nat Bailey in front of you, and knowing that you're going to have family in the stands, knowing you're going to have friends in the stands, knowing that people are going to see Vancouver, BC up on the board and they're going to cheer for you?
Yeah. No, it was awesome, and I knew going into it would be an awesome experience. The one thing about Vancouver is everything's amazing about it, except for the fact that you have to go through extended spring training, which a lot of people don't realize, right?
Yeah.
So you show up to spring training in late February, and you're going all the way until probably middle of June, early June. And then, so it's same thing as GCL kind of, but you're not really keeping records or score like you are, but the stats don't go down anywhere. And so it's long days. You're doing practices before games. So it's a bit of a battle to get through that. And to be honest,
do you kind of have like an X on the calendar for like, okay, we get to leave on this day?
Yeah. Yeah. So the group of guys that we had, we had a great group of guys going to Vancouver that year, and we kind of all knew, roughly where you were going beforehand. So that was, it was good. We had a good camaraderie, and we kind of knew like, hey, like let's battle through this next couple months so that we can get to Vancouver and just like enjoy it, and because everyone in the Blue Jays organization talks about Vancouver and how awesome it is and how you get treated like a big leaguer and like the crowds and everything, right? So it's like, let's get through this extended spring training and just really be able to enjoy it. And we had a really talented team. So once we got there and got a few games into the season, we're like, man, like we could probably do some damage in this league. Because that's the one thing about coming to the Northwest League is for the Blue Jays based in Florida, most of the teams in the Northwest League are in Arizona. So you don't really see any of these guys before that, and which is kind of nice refresher because a lot of the teams in Florida, you're playing every day in the Appalachian League. So you're seeing new talent and kind of getting out to a different spot. So that was also a nice, just break. It doesn't really matter who you're playing against, but it's just nice to not see the same guys every day, right? So,
well, especially if they know that I got a good fastball, good curveball, like they know one of them's coming.
yeah. So yeah, once we got there, it was awesome, and then probably a week or two into the season, we got the new draft guys in, which is also a weird situation, right? You have a full roster, and then that 2 weeks into the season, 4 or 5 plus guys are going to get sent down, right? And so you get these new guys in who you've never met, and they make up like a decent part of your roster. And luckily, we had a very talented group of guys come in who are just awesome people. So they fit right in and into our locker room. But yeah, we just continued to do what we were doing and win ball games and have fun.
So you said you got like treated almost like a big leaguer in Vancouver. I'm curious, like what the day in the life of a Vancouver Canadian looks like.
It's just like, you show up to the field probably 1 or 2 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, and we'd probably stretch about 3 o'clock and go do batting practice after. So up until then, you're either working out or hanging out in the locker room. We played spades a lot, so playing some cards and just having fun, enjoying each other's company. But yeah, you're staying at a host family's house, which is awesome. So you're not staying in a hotel where or a apartment that you're
With
sleeping
six guys in a 1 bedroom.
sleeping on a blow up mattress. So it was just nice to have good people looking after you and showing up to the field during the games. Like everyone's asking for autographs and like to the people in Vancouver, it's a big deal. And, coming from the GCL where you're playing in front of scouts and other players, it's a big step up, right? But yeah, it was just awesome to experience that, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Your role with the Canadians, I read that you were traditionally like a once through the rotation reliever kind of guy.
Yeah.
I love that role personally, and I think it's been coming through like a lot more in recent baseball. I think like one of the pioneers was like Andrew Miller with like Cleveland,
Yeah.
and I think that's almost like with starters now kind of going 2 times through the rotation. If they're elite guys, they'll go maybe 3 times, but for the most part, it's 2 times for a lot of the starters in big league baseball. How important like is the conversation around your role? Like I know closers are romanticized, and it's like, yeah, they shut the door in the ninth. It's of high importance. You have to be like a clutch guy. You got to throw 100 with a nasty slider kind of thing. And setup guys, the Yankees got like 5 closers,
Yeah.
but how important is that role in the organization and the conversation that they have with you? Like, hey, you're our middle guy. We need you going 2 to 3 innings.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously important for a closer to come in, shut the door, and starter to give you a quality start and give you an opportunity to win the game, right? It does get a little lost in those middle innings where it's a little less glorified, but you're still going out there and need to throw up zeros for the team and give them an opportunity to win, right? So for me in Vancouver, in some of the short seasons, you have called piggyback starters. So you kind of have two starters for the day, because you can carry a bigger roster, right? So for a lot of my outings were bridging the gap between those two guys. So it was one inning, or I'd go one time through the lineup, right? So it was kind of, yeah, it was a lot of fun coming out after a lot of my outings were after Nate Pearson. So he's coming
He's
out
pretty
just
good.
blowing the doors off of guys. And then I come in and they're just thrown off, right? Because it's
Yeah.
my fastballs, his changeup and slider. So no, it was fun, and I enjoy that role, because it's still competitive, right? And you're still going out there and doing your thing. But honestly, like wherever they throw me in the game, I'm good with. And coming out from being a starter in college, um, I kind of didn't really like the transition into the bullpen at first, where it was like, all right, I don't know like how long I need to get ready,
Yeah, yeah.
and you just have to develop new routines. Um,
How long
but
did that take you to do to develop that new routine?
it honestly wasn't too long, a couple weeks. You kind of figure it out. But yeah, once you get that, and I started to think like, man, like being a reliever is just way easier. You're not having to go get guys out three or four times, right? So I enjoy that, and you don't have to pitch guys differently each time. You can stick to your strengths,
Yeah,
and that's something that I've really learned is what was super valuable to me early on is, without even really knowing it, I was always kind of pitching to my strengths. Um, I kind of stumbled upon that, and analytics backed it up eventually once that became a bigger thing. But I've always thrown fastballs up in the zone where guys swing and miss through it, or foul it off, or don't really barrel it up, right? So I didn't really know why I was doing it, or wasn't always intentionally doing it, but I figured it out. And yeah, it turns out that the vertical break on my fastball rides through the upper part of the zone well. And once analytics became a bit bigger of a thing, which we started doing a lot more of it the last few years, that was something that they were like, all right, yeah, keep doing that. And it's just something that I've kind of always done.
yeah.
Not really knowing it. I always just kind of thought like I was late and leaving the ball up. But it
But it
turns
just
out
kept
it was,
working.
yeah, it turns out it was a good thing for me.
And then you have the big Snapdragon curveball that comes in. Is that a tunneling thing? Is that something you think
Yeah,
about? Like,
honestly, yeah, before the tunneling term was big, like it was something I did, but not intentionally.
yeah,
I just threw a four seam fastball that stayed up a lot, and a big 12-6 curveball. And now that tunneling and those terms and pitching ninjas doing all those things, like it makes a lot more sense of why I was having success, because I was throwing 87, 88 up in the zone, and guys were getting blown
yeah.
up by it.
Getting
And
beat.
there's guys who are throwing 92, 93, 94 down in the zone and getting hit. And it was kind of like, what the heck? And
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of my buddies in the bullpen would always give me a hard time about. It's just like, you got the invisible. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's just something that's natural for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. But yeah, it's honestly that was the biggest learning curve for me, is just like sticking to your strength and not pitching to hitters' weaknesses. Like if you can do them both at the same time, obviously it's optimal. But
Yeah.
I think if you're able to stick to your strengths, and you know that you can get guys out with that, and just having conviction in it, you're going to
Yeah.
have success.
Yeah. Do you want to just quickly describe what the word tunneling means for anybody who might not know?
Yeah, so basically it's, if you have a fastball and a breaking ball, if you start them in the same tunnel, so they're coming out of the same spot,
Yeah.
one's going to come down this way, and the fastball is going to stay up. So they're looking like the same pitches until later where they
Right.
break off.
Right. So you guys made a big run obviously in that year. You guys won the NWL. Like you said, you guys knew right like pretty early. Like yeah, we got a chance. We're gonna be a pretty powerful team in this league. Did that confidence carry you through the whole way, or were you guys just like better?
No, I mean confidence was definitely a part of it. It's the minor leagues is like not always about winning, and it's more about development. So
Yeah.
we had a good team, and then we won the first half, so we had an automatic playoff spot, and we were kind of like, like, let's
Relax.
just go out and win this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we just kept winning, ended up winning the second half, and then right before playoffs, 3 or 4 of our best pitchers got called up,
Yeah.
and so we're like, man, this
What are we gonna do?
kind of sucks, like, but we still had to go out and perform. We got some new guys in, and yeah, we ended like we were just honestly a really talented team throughout the lineup. Our starting pitching was awesome, and we had a good bullpen as well. So it's kind of everything you could ask for.
Yeah. I read that you were pretty key to the win in the finals there. You pitched game 1 and you went, and I think that's a testament to like what we were saying about how important your role is. You went 3 innings, and then you had 3 appearances and went 9 innings or something like that in the series.
Yeah, I think I threw 6 innings in the playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was honestly my whole second half. I just that's when it clicked. Like, all right, just stick to your strengths. I was trying to throw a slider that wasn't really fitting in, and I wasn't really filling up the zone, and I just struggled a little bit in the first half, and then kind of made some adjustments with our pitching coach and really dialed it in the second half and had a really good second half leading into the playoffs. Turned out to be one of the guys, especially when 2 of our best bullpen guys got called up. They needed some guys to take the innings, and ended up, turning out to be pretty good for me through 6 innings. I don't think I had a base runner, honestly, in the playoffs. So, yeah, it was just kind of the confidence that once I figured out who I was and what my strengths were, it was just felt easy for me, and I was confident and like knew I could get the job done.
Just being able to go up there and let it eat and say go ahead and try.
Yeah.
So when did you go to Driveline?
So it was kind of a weird situation where I showed up to spring training in this year, 2019, and they were kind of like I was slotted to end up in high A because I was in Lansing the year before, and I had probably about a month of time in Double A where I was in extended. They called me up and needed a guy to fill in, and then went back down to Lansing. So I was slotted this year to go this year, 2019, to go to Dunedin, and they called me in probably 2 weeks left in spring training. We're like, hey, like, we don't really have a spot for you. We have a couple options for you. You can go on the Phantom DL, which basically means you're
not hurt, but
you're waiting until somebody gets hurt or a spot opens up, which, could be a week, could be 2 months.
Yeah.
You can ask for your release and we'll give you that, or you can go to Driveline and we'll put you up there and get you set up there and try and gain some velocity, because really at the end of the day, that was what was holding me back. And they had been saying like, yeah, like if you can gain a couple miles an hour, like you'll turn into a guy for us, and it'll just make your progression a lot easier.
Right.
So I went out there in I think late April, early May, and I was there for 5 weeks, I believe. I went in spring training that year. I was sitting like 89 to 91. And within 3 weeks, I had hit 97.
Wow.
Um, and so, yeah, it was a pretty crazy time for me. I had a lot of fun, learned a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I think personally, I kind of rushed back into it. And yeah, there wasn't, because it was so new for the Blue Jays send guys there and everything, there just wasn't really like a plan for me once I got back. Um, and yeah, obviously, like if you gain 6, 7 miles an hour in less than a month, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of risk, and somewhere's got to take the stress. So yeah, I ended up blowing out my UCL, and yeah, it was needed Tommy John surgery. So I got that, ended up getting that on July 1st, 2019. So I'm still kind of rehabbing for that right now. I'm supposed to get on a mound and throw my first bullpen on Tuesday. So pretty excited for that because it's been a pretty long road to get to this point. And honestly, it's the mental grind of it is just as much as the physical grind. Probably tougher because my like going to the field every day and rehabbing for the first 6 months, you're not throwing, so you're pretty committed to just getting stronger in the weight room and doing anything else that you can kind of do to better yourself for when you start throwing. So I was in the best shape of my life physically, 6 months out when I started throwing, and then the last 2 months after that, even better. Because I had moved down to Florida January 6th, I think, and I was committed to being there until July at least, when I was going to be healthy and throwing games, and then see wherever they sent me. So I had shipped my car down there and was just like committed to being down there, right? So
Nice timing,
um,
COVID.
yeah. So that part was kind of tough, and this was probably the year, if there was any, that I needed to be down there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the one thing that the minor leagues has taught me is just like being able to cope with not ideal situations, because that's a lot of the deal of it is you just need to be able to adapt and live and learn and just go on and do your business and still try and get better at baseball and move on, right? So that was, it's Tommy John's not something that I'd wish upon anyone. It definitely is something that teaches a lot about yourself, and you learn a ton. And yeah, I mean, there's days that are very dark, and you're thinking like, man, like, am I ever gonna get back to where I was? Um, but yeah, if you can just stick with the process and trust that the physios and the training staff and the strength coaches know what they're doing and have your best interest in mind, that you're going to come back better as long as you put in the effort and buy into the program.
So you're about to throw your first pen. How strong, like, what did your throwing program look like coming back to this point now where you're throwing your first pen?
So there's two sets. The first set is a very gradual build up. So you're at 45 feet for 2 weeks, and then you get back to, and you're only throwing 3 times a week. And then you move back 15 feet gradually every couple weeks, whatever. And eventually you get to 5 days a week where you're throwing. And you get back, I think I got back to probably about 135 feet or something like that. And then you just stop throwing for 2 or 3 weeks. There's just a built-in deload phase in it. So yeah, when I started throwing, it was pretty tough for me. Just physically, like I don't have the greatest feel with the ball. And so it was tough to pick that up after 6 months of not doing it. And then there's the whole mental side of just, yeah, like my elbow was torn and they fixed it, but like, what if it's not fixed? And so you just have to like know that the doctor did the surgery right, and that it's healed, and just trust that. Because I ran into a bit where like I wasn't trusting it, and it ended up making my throwing motion like super awkward, and it just like there was a 2 or 3 week stretch where it was just really tough for me because I just had no idea what I was doing out there. So yeah, honestly, buying in and just trusting it, and just having faith that it's fixed, and you just gotta heal it and follow the program.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
I think that's good advice really to any athlete coming out of a fairly serious injury, especially one
Yeah.
that requires surgery.
Hmm.
I think that's a good place to segue into one of the questions I wanted to ask just to kind of wrap up is maybe I'll reshape it a little bit, but what advice do you have for kids during, COVID right now who aren't doing anything? And I think it's a good thing, like a good way to shape it is you kind of had to go through that before everybody else did in terms of like you got a lot of things taken away from you going through your rehab process and not being able to do a
Hmm.
lot of things. So you had to, I'm assuming you had to kind of get creative to help you get better in a lot of different ways. You said you spent a lot of time in the weight room, but um, what kind of things did you do like outside of baseball to help you continue progressing that kids can do like right now during COVID?
Yeah. So I obviously it's a little different, but I ended up taking a semester of school in the fall last year, just because I knew I was gonna be back and forth between Florida. Um, so just like getting back into the education side, I started reading a lot more. Um, yeah, there's tons of stuff. As far as COVID goes, like you said, being creative, and if baseball is your thing or if it's any other sport, just finding ways to go and be able to train or practice, whatever. Since I've been home, I've been throwing with my dad, my girlfriend, some of my buddies, like just find a way to be able to do it. I've thrown into a wall. You just gotta, if you want to get better and be able to move on to the next level, or make a team next year or whatever, there's just because you can't be out with other people right now doesn't mean that you can't still be working, whether it's going through dry reps at home or working on your swing without hitting, stuff like that, where you can still, get the muscle memory and work on stuff, watch videos, really anything that's gonna let you do the reps where it might not be what you normally do in a normal season, but you have the time to experiment right now. And yeah, just honestly use that um, to be able to better yourself so that when all this settles and we can move on, you didn't waste the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. And like you said, train your brain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, last question before I let you go. You're in a good spot in terms of your professional career. You've managed to stick around, which is better than a heck of a lot of people
Yeah.
that play minor league baseball. What advice do you have for, like a 17-year-old Brayden Bouchey?
Honestly, just work hard, go about your business the right way. I know a lot of coaches down south love Canadian kids because there's a trend that they're hard workers, and um, they're coachable and enjoy playing the game. So honestly, that's the biggest thing is work hard, have a good attitude, and be able to be coached, because if if you're not coachable, that's the first thing where you're going to get crossed off, And I think a lot of what's kept me around the game is the front office is even with Driveline, they didn't have to send me to Driveline. They didn't have to pay for it. But I knew that they like me as a person. And even though like at the time, like it wasn't physically, I wasn't where they needed me to be to put me on a team, they were going to give me that opportunity because I had earned it with working hard and being a good teammate and that sort of stuff. So yeah, just honestly, like be a good human and work hard. It'll get you a long way.
Yeah, your commitment to the Blue Jays helped the Blue Jays, decide that they wanted to commit to you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Keep your ego in check at the door, kids. That's basically what we're saying here.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially like just have like self-awareness of who you are and where you're at. Like you may think you're a first rounder, but there's only 30 something each year, right? So if you want to be that guy, you have to be the top 30 in that year's draft class, right?
Yeah.
So just if you're not, you have to find other ways, work hard, be able to develop once you get in or once you get to college, be able to get better to earn that starting rotation spot or a starting job in the lineup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time. Good luck with the remainder of your rehab. I know it's tough. I've had, quite a few friends go through the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's different for every single person going through it, but good luck to you in the remainder of it, and hopefully you can come back, throwing 97 again.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Have a great day. And this for everybody watching, this will be up on YouTube within a week if you want to rewatch it. All right. Take care, Brayden.
Thanks, Logan.